Hey, my people, what's up? What's up? What's up? We got another episode of the asset class. That's my boy Jesse.
And my man Earl.
Look, Jesse is one of the best business coaches that there is walking this earth. When you want to look at your KPIs, your metrics, your SOPs, even your communication style with your employees, with your contractors to make sure everything is driving that bottom line, there is nobody better than Jesse to work with. He's the visionary and owner of Bullseye Consulting.
And my man Earl on the tax side. So when it comes to entity structure and being able to really leverage the game as it's structured between a S corp and a C corp, you know, anybody can register an LLC and call themselves a business owner, but graduate into the space where you put in these entity strategies in place in order to eliminate or significantly mitigate the tax exposure proactively is, again, we ain't talking about it enough. And I'm seeing it even more as I'm getting back on the road and working with these clients that all around the country. And none of them really are leveraging any of that stuff because they just don't know. And they doing millions of dollars in revenue. And I'm seeing firsthand what it looks like to come in and get those things straightened out, because enabling efficiency within an organization in order to increase the bottom line is one thing, but what's the benefit of truly maximizing the bottom line when Uncle Sam is going to come and say, congratulations, you played yourself. I need that. Like it truly is hustling backwards to not leverage the tax code the way that it's structured. To that point, it's written in convoluted terms for a reason, to isolate folks like the common man, to be able to take advantage of these things, which is where folks like my man Earl and his ilk come in, because, their professional function in life is to understand the vulnerabilities within the tax structure that applies specifically toward your business, your next code, and how all of that stuff ties together. So don't play yourself. Get with my man Earl.
Don't play yourself. The quickest way to double your wealth is to pay half as much in taxes. I say that as the managing partner of Tax Erasers. So you can already tell this is not your average podcast, and we're going to give you some serious, actionable information. And with that, we're going to hop right into our disclaimer here and get it flowing with the episode. So look, we always encourage you guys to work with licensed professionals with a track record of success and bonded in nature if they need be, depending on what type of business they have. But we always encourage you to do your own research, because as you learn more, each one, reach one, teach one, because that's how we learn and grow as a community.
1000%. So, bro, I think one of the dopest things about this juncture in my career is I'm hitting airports all around this great country of ours. And, the assignment is clear. Bam, bam. This marketing going everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Just walking through the airports, putting on. And
yes, sir.
It's dope, man. It's dope, because the consulting that I've done in the past has always been 100% on the behalf of another firm. Whereas now, like, I fly that firm's flag when I'm in front of their clients, but everywhere else, you already know what it is. And I want to qualify what I said. Their clients, they are securing their clients that they're sending me to. And I do what I do when I get there. So they are, in fact, their clients, and I'm contracted to deliver a value proposition. And then I have my own clients that I'm able to deliver my value proposition to as well. So as that process is continuing to play out, man, it's fucking dope. Fucking dope. New phase.
I love to see it, and I hope nobody missed that. That's a major gem. You just gave away millions of dollars of game right there. He is exercising free enterprise where he owns the IP of Bullseye Consulting. He markets with that. He has it on apparel. That's also a tax play. So he's always marketing and branding himself, but through a partnership, or a joint venture, whatever we're calling it, depending on how it's structured, he is able to bring in more cash flow to elevate himself with the amount of work and expertise he has by helping out another business. So they might be their clients, but he's working his magic and he's making the relationships. He's in front of the people. And as he's driving results, it's amazing what happens over 6 months, a year, 2 years, and 5 years. Do not let that go over your head where you guys feel like you are too big to do partnerships, too big to do junctures with other entities. This week, I had a conference where I learned all about strategic partnerships to get a sponsorship from a big brand and how willing a big brand is to give you money, even if you are a smaller individual. But also, you could be a large company and you're looking to get sponsorships just because it brings other sponsorships, which brings collaboration, which brings new ideas, new bloodline, new client sharing, and new revenue. Regardless of how big you are, you ain't big enough.
That's a big old fact. And another big old fact associated with that is when it comes to building the bankability of a business, which I don't even know if I just made up a word. That should sound good though. But
It's fire.
when it comes to the bankability of a company, it's one thing to have to deal with all of the struggles that comes along with growing. And there's another for you to have access to additional capital-based resources because you can produce a financial statement that demonstrates that the business is already generating revenue to a certain extent. Because once you are able to demonstrate that your business is actually cash flowing, these banking institutions and lenders and investors, they're always looking for somewhere to park their money at to make it grow. So for me to be doing this in this sense, aside from growing my brand and this piece that I just spoke to, as far as, you know, I'm up in these folks' faces in airports all around the country with Bullseye Consulting gang. What we talking about? Beyond that, like I'm thinking about the lending institutions that are going to be banging down my door because I'm demonstrating that revenue comes from what it is that's being produced. So it's levels to this shit. And it's important for those of us who are intentional about owning assets that appreciate in value and really leveraging it.
I love it, brother. And just to be the other side of that same coin, as we usually are, he's talking about building value, which is going to draw in different lending sources, different sources of capital, which you always need. You can never have too many. One thing that I'm often talking about, especially as I'm making more and more partnerships with private equity firms, with some of these firms that do advances for ERC money, because sometimes the money is stuck. It got stuck. It's rightfully yours. You did everything right. The IRS knows everything's right, but something got jammed up in the middle. And there's a firm that will see that opportunity and say, hey, we'll get you 80% of that capital. We're going to keep, the other 20, and 80% of something is better than nothing. Every business owner knows that, but because there is time value to money. So you could wait another 2 years and get the whole thing, or you can have 80% of it right now. What makes more sense? But the conversation that we have all the time that makes them go from arms crossed, waiting to be impressed by me, to like, so what's the next step? Funding comes from tax records. Credit comes from tax records. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of people in the comments talking about, no, I know a way to be able to stack credit where we're only basing it on future projected income. Yes, that's credit stacking. I am very familiar with that. I've gotten friends and family members tens of thousands of dollars doing that. And it's useful to be able to have, 0% APR business credit cards and whatnot. But when we're talking about getting a business line of credit, when we're talking about taking out large lines of credit, either against an asset or completely unsecured with no PG, no personal guarantee, they want to see those tax records. When we're talking about buying new businesses, because Jessica and I know what to do with it, we buy a business with no money down. We finance 80, 90, 95% of the business. He's going to get in there. He's going to tighten up the KPIs, the SOPs. He's going to make sure it's running efficiently. I'm going to make sure it's running efficiently as possible on the tax side, the FICA side, so that all the cash flow that he is creating in our new business is actually going to the business and the owners, which are these good-looking guys that are talking to you right now. When we're making these applications, it is far too easy just to play broke. Everybody knows how to go to YouTube University, and you're listening to that one real estate agent or that guy that knows everything about Dave Ramsey, that guy that went to 2 Robert Kiyosaki classes and he's read Rich Dad Poor Dad like 5 times. But they're like, oh, you could write this off. Oh, you could write that off. Do you know what a write-off is? Do you know the weight that it carries in your business when you write something off? It means you are taking a loss. Now, there are times in business where we should claim nothing and we should take losses. And that's what makes the most sense in certain situations. With the intellectual property and strategies that I have, more often than not, we're going to be able to offset your tax liability using code and using tax credits, which lenders love because they're going to look at your tax return and they're going to see all the revenue, all the income here. Then they're going to see tax credit on one line, and then they might see tax code on 2 lines. It's 3 lines there. It's nice and clean. They're like, this person knows what the hell they're doing. Fund them. Go ahead and fund them at a 2.5 times basis because this is so clean. Fund them at a 400% basis because this is so clean. Once I explain this to the PE guys, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Underwriting hates when they see this and this and this. They see 4 different cost segregations. They see all this stuff. They're like, it's so much. It's almost like a class in tax strategy for the underwriter just to see the suitability to give you your loan or to give you your credit card. Like, let's just clean up the paperwork and let's get you the paper to work. You feel me?
That part. And one of the essential components, just from a personal and professional development perspective, in order to really do that, is understanding not even just accounting generally, but managerial accounting. So when we talk about managerial accounting, what that basically speaks to is when we're talking about planning a job out and we're thinking about the amount of manpower that it takes to get it done. and we're thinking about the types of materials that are going to be required, the raw materials that are going to be required in order to deliver that product or those services, the costs of all of that, what it costs to pay the staff, what it costs to purchase the raw materials. Those are financial transactions that then get classified or categorized and reflect on the financial statement as cost of goods sold. So managerial accounting is just understanding how the things that are happening in the business are referred to in business language, because that's what accounting is. Like Warren Buffett has said that, like, accounting is the language of business, and it truly is. Now, with that being said, the analogy that I like to give with that is by posing a question. As a business owner, would you move, excuse me, as a human being, rather, just a human being. Let's say you're an American citizen. Would you move to a foreign country and in an act of complete and utter defiance, stubbornly cross your arms and say, I'm not learning the language, I'm not learning the customs, I'm not learning the traditions of where I'm at? The hell with that. I'm an American. I'm in this country. It's about me. Now, obviously, that would be a fool's errand. You would want to know what is going on in the country that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And you would want to understand the language that's being spoken around you. The equivalent of what I just described is to go into business without a foundational understanding of managerial accounting. Because again, it is the language of business. So, from the cost of goods sold to the margins and the ratios, all of these different things that takes the things that are happening in the business and translates it into that language that all folks that are serious about business speak. So it's just important, critical, I would venture to say, to understand that piece of it, because the alternative to that, which I see all too often, is a business owner measuring their success in business by looking at their bank account. And it's like, I get it. You go from nothing being in the account to you generating revenue, and you like, ooh, yeah. But not thinking about, oh, I got to pay that vendor. I got rent coming up. I got taxes that are due. I got payroll that I got to pay out. I got all of these things that have to happen. And I'm looking at the bank account. Bank account look good, so I got money to spend. No, you don't. Because you ain't thought about them other things that got to go out. So again, through understanding managerial accounting, it gives you a baseline understanding or baseline capability to truly understand what the cost of your sale is and what all of the operating costs, the expenses, all of the things, how all of that is balanced when it comes to how you're pricing the products and services that you offer. So I can't foot stomp the point enough. Managerial accounting is critical. When we decide to step into this game of entrepreneurship, and again, in a sheer act of defiance, cross our arms and say, the hell with all that, as long as my bank account look good, that is the reason why companies like the one I'm contracted for are charging small business owners anywhere between $17,000 to $25,000. Well, up to, because we put together the investment schedule for the client that I'm working with now. And it's important. Let me add some context to that. The investment schedule.
Please do.
When we're looking at, because a lot of folks, they would never even consider getting professional help because they're just looking at it as a cost. The basic definition of an investment is that it returns, like you get a return on said investment. When you're investing in your business to correct any of the deficiencies because you don't have the skill set to do that, that is what it is. It's an investment because it will return back to you as a result. So again, folks that are not paying attention to that type of stuff, what I'm explaining now, they either go out of business altogether or they end up in a position where they paying a handsome amount of bread in order to fix what they fucked up.
100%. And I think what we're really talking about right now is sustained greatness. How long do you want to be great? Not good, not just functioning, but greatness. And when we look at that, I think about like a young Tiger Woods, where he started winning all these different national championships. And then a world class coach reached out to him and said, "Hey, I know you're really good, but if we stripped your form, started from scratch right now, look, you're going to struggle for a little while. It might be a year, it might be 2 years. But if you stick to it and make these changes now, you could be the greatest golfer to ever live." And it was interesting to watch people laugh at him while he struggled to get things going with the new form that he was getting down. And then once he got it down, he was winning by margins so great, a whole nother championship could have been won in between him and the next closest guy. And then they applauded him. We have to begin with the end in mind. He was not just looking to win national championship. It's like, I want to be the greatest ever. I want to actualize my potential. So if it means I got to suck for 3 years, I lose all my sponsorships, nobody believes in me anymore, I lose my girl, everything, whatever. I'm chasing greatness so I can have the opportunity of just getting a whiff of perfection. I know I'll never get there, but I want to be in pursuit of that. And for business owners that have that kind of mindset or something even close to that, you have to change things up. If I told you everything that you knew about business accounting or tax accounting or retirement or estate planning, entity structure was wrong, how quickly would you want to know the right information? What if the information you got was C plus, where it could help you out when you're a big fish in a small pond, but as you elevate up to the next level, dang, you just became a minnow. How are you going to survive in these deep waters? You got to act accordingly. You got to grow. And growing pain is always uncomfortable. But here's the thing, a comfort zone is warm, it's plush, it's beautiful, but it's not hot. It's not warm enough for anything of significance to grow there. So we got to strip this stuff down. And sometimes it feels like taking a step backwards so we can take a quantum leap forward. So I really appreciate you for sharing that and what you're doing for these clients, because we're going to revisit this a year from now and it's going to be insane where you're like, yeah, they got a 400% increase on what they did. And that's not including like a new tax strategy. That's just off the raw growth of the company. Man, you're cooking with hot fire, my brother.
Man. So we have a very, very special treat for our classmates this evening. We got a big dog, a titan when it comes to this financial literacy, this building wealth through multiple vehicles, making sure they children are squared away for generations to come.
Look, she's got to be one of the most requested retirement specialists that there is. Everybody wants to get her on their show. Everybody wants to talk to her just because she has such a wealth of knowledge that touches so many different bases of wealth, from business, retirement, all these different things. I, I feel very fortunate that we're getting her on the show, that we had a great time with her in Atlanta when we were hanging out with a lot of the most wealthy, well-to-do, melanated people on the planet, everyone from Magic Johnson. How many black billionaires were there? It was crazy. And she still stands out in a crowd like that.
Miss Kristen.
Hey.
What up, though?
How y'all doing?
Incredible. How about you?
Incredible as well.
All right now.
Yeah. So I've been listening to you guys' conversation. Some good stuff.
So these are conversations that we're not having enough of within our community. And it's to our own detriment. So before we get into some of the greatness that makes you who you are, how did you get into this space, and what does it mean for you to operate within it?
Oh man, I could give you the short version or the long version. I'll stick with the short. But it kind of fell in my lap. I'll say it like that. I was going through a big life transition after divorce. I had two kids and I was a registered nurse. So I was working, you say 40 hours a week is like a regular work week. I was working like 50 to 60. And that was just to keep a roof over our head. That was not anything extra. And so probably about 8 months of that, I got a call from someone locally and they said, "Hey, we're doing some financial education for the community. It's free. Would you like to come by?" And I said, yes. Had never sat down with anyone before. Even when I was married for almost 9 years, we never went and saw anyone for our finances. We always felt like either we couldn't afford to do it or that we were just such novices that we would, get laughed at or taken advantage of. So it was like a fear. And then it was also like, hey, I think we have to have some bread. But when he said free, I said, well, I'll take that. It's my favorite word, free 99. That's for sure. And I went into the office and I just remember hearing just basic concepts, but it rocked my world. Like, so simple. And I literally said it to the guy. I said, you can teach this to my kids. Like, this is easy. I was like, so why isn't this taught anywhere else? And, what he said made sense. I mean, what does it benefit anyone else, right, who benefits from a lot of these systems if we do know? If they do teach this in schools, especially high school, before you go write your first check or get your first job, right? Literacy, people think it's always about the money, but it's actually about the knowledge. So that actually correlated to nursing for me. Like literally, I was like, you come to the ER. Well, I worked in ICU, but same thing. You come into the hospital, you got something wrong with you. We diagnose you after we hear your symptoms, and then we give you the treatment. And hopefully we don't see you back. And that's the same for the financial world. So I fell in love with it. And yeah, I've been doing this ever since, full time for it's coming up on 6 years in less than 2 months. So no employer will let me. But I enjoy the education. You can, I get this a lot. People say when you're talking, like when you're like really in it, you light up. And I can tell that this is something you love to do. So that's how I got started.
Man, so we've spoken about that on other episodes as far as it not being about the money and more so about the knowledge, because the thing about knowledge is, short of something happening that impacts our health or ability to breathe and exist, to live, like be alive, once that knowledge has been secured, you can't take it away from you. You know what I'm saying? Like the game is the game. It's there. Now, you mentioned at the beginning of sharing how you got started that you felt that you couldn't afford to have those types of conversations.
Mhm.
How has that shifted to a perspective of now recognizing how much that we can't afford to not take these steps and to have these conversations?
Wow. So I will say ignorance is not bliss. I know we like to say that. Knowledge is really not power unless applied. So I like to say that too.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's almost like, especially in the Black community, I'll say this, a lot of things are taboo. And the reason why they're taboo is because no one's ever done it. So it's just one of those things, either we don't talk about it, or I'm sure you have a family member that has said something crazy like this, like, if I have life insurance, I'll never tell y'all because you're just going to try to collect the check. You're like, just crazy stuff. And so I think when there's a lack of knowledge in something, it's just easier to brush it off or not deal with it, or I call it the ostrich syndrome, where you just put your head in the ground, right? It still exists, but you're not addressing it. Um, and so I think, and I actually had this conversation, I think it was you, Earl, where I said millennials we're changing things. We've really started to change things. We've accepted like the answer no is not good enough, right? And then we're looking around at everyone else and the opportunities that they have. We understand that there was some oppression that kind of set us back, but now that we have the tools and the capabilities and like knowledge is at the touch of your fingers now, right? Like you really can't keep it from someone if they really want to find out. So I think with all that in the information age, millennials have really taken this to a whole other level. And so when you talk about, the lack of knowledge is actually hurting, gosh, it is. I remember doing my first retirement account. I didn't even think I did anything that special. It was like an annuity with an income rider. And let me think, she did have a smaller IUL and it had some cash buildup. And I remember,
So
her being like,
hold on, Chris, because we were just talking about how accounting is the language of business, and you
mm-hmm.
throwing out all these fancy acronyms and
Oh, yeah.
IULs and all of these things. Break it down for our folks that don't understand what you're saying.
Gotcha, gotcha. So annuity, I like to say, is basically a pension that you own. That's the best way to put it. You have a lump sum of money, and the company would love for you to keep it there, but you can confiscate that, move it. You have people who have 401ks, right? And they're usually in the market. They have no clue what it's doing. It's just going up, down, up, down. No one's managing it, right? So when you move that money over, typically that is not, a tax event, right? Or taxable event, people just say, oh, do I have to pay taxes? No, we're just moving it over into a situation where you're not going to lose in the market, but you will get gains in the market. Now that blows people away because they're like, I've never heard of that. Right, you haven't. They also didn't teach you about, how money grows and how it's taxed and compound interest equation. So there you go. So when you move that money over to a life insurance company and then they say, okay, we're going to do an annuity, you can turn that income on just like a pension. So basically, just to make it, layman's terms, it's a personal pension. That's it. It lasts forever. Um, Index Universal Life, I mentioned IUL. This is like the smartphone versus flip phone when we talk about cash value life insurance. I know a lot of people were very stuck on whole life for a very long time, but whole life does have its limitations. So when they created Index Universal Life, that same concept where I said that you're going to only gain in the market, not lose, that's how the IUL cash value account works. So you have the life insurance account, and then you dump the extra to grow just in the market, but not lose any money. So you can imagine someone's portfolio going from all at risk because that's all they know is just throw it in the market to, hey, now there's a part of my retirement that I can actually kind of plan this for real out. And you start to see the numbers actually make sense and actually be a foundation. And then they can add whatever else they want on top of that. But you do have something that guarantees you will never lose money. And something just that simple, right? Me applying that to my first client and her saying, I never thought I could retire because I never saw it on paper. Like I just always saw like it could be, that's the market. She said, but I never had someone say, let me show you these simple things, and you can move this money somewhere where it can actually give you an income in retirement. So, yeah.
That's that's so powerful. When I think about high level portfolios and how intricate we can make them, the thing that professionals like you do is offer a both and, where clients can put some of this money, they can put a lot of that money with you in safe accounts. But
Right.
I always think of it as a way of replacing bonds, because we used to say, hey,
Mm,
put 60% in the stock market, 40% in bonds. What did we see over the last 5.5 years? Bonds have been negative. We found out that bonds go up and down just as much as stocks. So if your volatility shield is volatile, what is it shielding?
right.
Absolutely nothing. And working with professionals like yourself, where we can double and sometimes even triple the rate of return on the safe part of your portfolio, that's mind blowing. I mean, it's amazing when you show my clients that sort of thing, how much money we can keep out of the Wall Street cartel.
Mm,
And for the money that is with the Wall Street cartel, they can get even riskier with it, because when we look at the portfolio as a whole, it's the same risk ratio, because there is no stock market volatility here. Now it has to be
right.
structured the right way, funded the right way, all that kind of good stuff. Now, Kristen, one thing I want to ask you, as the tax guy on this here podcast, now there's some really serious tax savings that you can get through some of these instruments, right?
Oh, yes. Mega. Hmm.
So
For
it,
sure.
what? So how is it tax-free retirement? Can you speak to that a little bit? How maybe universal life can be tax-free retirement?
Yes, I sure can, because that's actually my favorite part too, because who wants to overpay in taxes? We already do that every day. You get taxed when you get your check, and then you get taxed when you go to the store, and then you get taxed. It's a lot.
Can I
So,
add to that before you go?
yes.
So we were talking about ROI, and this is the thing. I don't mind paying taxes if I know that it's going to actually produce a viable ROI that I can see. So if I see society improving as a result of the investments that the government makes with what I paid in taxes,
Mm,
I'm more susceptible. I'm like, all right, cool. But when you tell me that you're going to take my tax dollars and do what our government does with it,
right.
you got me fucked up.
Right. Financial irresponsibility at its finest. Yes. So you don't want to see someone take your money and then go buy golden toilets and, 200 pounds of crab legs. Okay. Like we've been hearing. So, with that being said, since you spend your whole entire life paying taxes, why not give yourself a break when you're on a fixed income, or you're retired and you're not working anymore? And so the whole gimmick, and I love that Earl said the word replace, because I'm about to get on that word here in a second. But the entire gimmick to this was they sold it to the baby boomer generation first. And they said, listen, don't you want to pay less taxes right now? And they're like, yeah, that actually would sound great. And so, boom, they introduce a IRC, which is an internal revenue code, aka a tax code. There's tens of thousands of them, okay? But this is the one they let you know about. And they said, listen, we'll give you some stocks, or, like you said, bonds, or mutual funds, or whatever. And here's the company you're going to do it with. And then we're going to slap this tax code on there, 401 Section K. And you can move money in there and not be taxed right now. So people were taking their taxable income down, like, oh man, I can only be taxed on 60,000 a year instead of 70 or 75, right? So that was really appealing, but they left the other part off. And if you've looked at the trend of our nation's taxes over the last 100 years, I remember telling someone, I said, do you know what the highest top marginal tax rate was in the 1940s? And they're like, no. That means like the top of the top. Yes, the, upper echelon, the people who make the most. But guess how high that tax rate went? 94%. I'm saying if you have a dollar, you got to give me 94 cents of that dollar, and you get to keep six. That's crazy. But when people say, well, I just don't see the government raising taxes any higher than this, go look at the chart. They've done it before. They will do whatever they need to do to keep this country running, especially since they've been very fiscally irresponsible with the money they've already had to begin with. So, now we're in this system where people thought it was a great idea to defer taxes. And the biggest bill before was medical and healthcare, right? When you get older, things start breaking down. You have to prepare for that. So people were like, let me get a plan for that, Medicare. But when they sold this, defer your taxes and kick it down the line, now taxes is one of the biggest bills people are paying in retirement. So if I can take that bill off the table for you, I will do it, and I can definitely do it with those two products I mentioned earlier. And there's some other ways I can definitely do it too, but I'm just going to introduce, those are the two most common ones you'll see. You've already paid your taxes on this money, right? So think of a triangle separated into three parts, and the very front part is smaller if I were to lay it on its side. The middle part's getting a little bigger, and then the back end part is the biggest part. Which part of that triangle would you rather pay taxes in? The small
The
part
small
up front.
part.
Yeah. So just go ahead and do it. You're working, your legs work, right? If you need to work some overtime to cover your tax bill, you can do that now. But in retirement, do you want to hustle and have the two biggest bills you'll ever have in your life to cover? Because guess what? You're not going to stay retired. It's not happening. So honestly, without a tax-free approach for multiple sources, people won't be able to retire because there's no pensions left. So without that, yeah, it's, to me, I don't even see it being possible.
I love it. I love the way that you place that. I'm talking to a business owner today because I'm doing their exit plan. So I'm doing the tax plan for them.
Mm,
And I'm like, beyond just doing the tax plan for today, I want to look at your future income. I want to look at these different things for what you have in place. And I showed them the math very quickly, and they end up paying. So they've put money away for years and years and years.
mm-hmm.
They end up paying twice as much in taxes as they get through distributions with their
I
current
believe
tax
it.
plan.
Yep.
And they're just blown away. They've never seen the numbers. And it's funny, they're both engineers. So once I showed them the numbers, they're like, oh, no, 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 we're not doing that. There has to be another postulate. Isn't there, Earl? Yes, yes, we got a lot of tax planning things we can do. We work with great professionals like Retirement Barbie, who's going to get you right. And we're going to knock those taxes off and kill them off for forever. One thing that I also want to ask you, because I've been sharing some of your content on my socials, and people have been lighting up about it because you often talk about things that other people aren't talking about. They want to make themselves sound smart versus you want to make an impact and you want to help people. You've been talking about the national debt for a couple years, and you break it down. You even showed how they hid the website. They try to hide it from the layman and whatnot. Can you talk about the national debt a little bit and why you keep bringing it up? Like, what does that have to do with me and my retirement?
Mm, that's a good one too. So back to that fiscal irresponsibility that I was talking about. Yes, that definitely has broadened that gap. When I first started watching the national debt, this was roughly 7 years ago when I first discovered that website, usdebtclock.org. So if anybody wants to write that down,
What was the debt at that time?
it was 21.5 trillion with a T.
And now it's
39 trillion. We're probably already at 39.5. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I've
sorry.
watched it
I'm sorry, you were
do that.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to add that context because
Yeah.
7 years ago, we moving in the wrong direction, people.
Very fast. Extremely fast. So let's break this down, like Earl said, into like layman's terms. If you have bills and they're $5,000 a month, but you're only bringing in $3,000 a month, every month you're going to keep going down in debt $2,000. So that's definitely one big thing that the US has done. Without getting too complicated as well, when we switched from when we print dollars, back in the day when we actually printed money, we had gold in the back to back it up. Like we were like, yeah, this is a dollar, paper dollar, but it's matched to gold, okay? 1971, we decided to switch to a system where it was like, well, we don't technically have it in the back, but this is an IOU. So literally the dollar became a glorified IOU at that point when they start just printing. And when you do something like that, right, of course, it influences a lot of things. It influences inflation, and then other debt. So the debt trickles down. So it's not just them now. The companies are going into debt because they're overextending. Now the American people are going into debt because they're overextending, right? It's just insane. And it becomes a vicious cycle. And we've been doing this, like I said, since the 70s. So you can only imagine when you're playing in the dirt for that long, you're going to come up dirty. And that's pretty much where we're at. This has been cooking like a slow crock pot roast, and it's pretty much done. So when we talk about the debt, and like I said, I also watch, so the debt is the biggest part on that clock, but there's so many other things. You're looking at, again, I told you like the US budget, what we're paying out, which is about, our bills are about 7 trillion a year, but we're only bringing in like 5.23 trillion in income. Okay. So there's your deficit right there. A lot of these programs that, they introduced or this new administration has taken away, but it wasn't the right ones and it wasn't enough money. Don't even get me started. I'm going to get on tariffs in a second. But all this mismanagement of funds, we're literally watching it right before our very eyes. And so when you go on the debt clock, it's a lot going on. But the good thing about it is you can hover over each thing and it will briefly give you a synopsis of what you're looking at. Now, of course, you might need further explanation of what you're looking at, but at least it tells you. And so when you watch debt go that fast in the wrong direction, that is actually a symptom of something else. Because you just don't do that without there being major, and not just one thing. I talked about that in the video where it's not just one thing like, oh, we're paying for a war right now. Or no, we've mishandled Medicare. They knew that Social Security was going to be insolvent in the 80s. And they kept it going. So you keep a program going instead of like altering it. Instead of saying like, oh, we increased the checks, but we're running out of money and y'all use the money for other stuff too and you still haven't paid it back, right? So again, it's a mess. And so what we're seeing now is something that occurred 50 years ago. We're just now seeing the consequences of a lot of that. So yes, the debt is involved in that. Before the tariff clock entered the debt clock, there was Doge. I did a video on Doge when it first hit the debt clock. I already knew it was what it was for. It was basically to acquire the American people's personal information, right? The Social Security specifically. And they accomplished that. Okay. Now, of course, people are gonna be like, how do you know that? How can you prove that? Hey, call me a liar, but like I said, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, whatever, it's a duck, right? So have your own opinions, but that's basically what that was. It was an operation, and they're going towards privatized. So if they have our information, they have the intel that they need to create these privatized systems so that these companies can now make money instead of the government. So you have that. And then when Elon left or whatever, he left 8 months early, by the way. That's another sign. I was like, y'all just really playing in our face, like for real. Left 8 months early, and they claimed that we were getting these $5,000 Doge checks. Why? Because they were cutting people's jobs, their way of life. I can tell you about 20% of my clients went through this just to redistribute their salary to the American people. But then it didn't even work. So basically, you increased the unemployment rate, and that's all you did. Because the Doge clock ended up being what, a couple $100 billion? It takes 1,000 billion to make 1 trillion. Like, you didn't even put a dent in any of this. It was a joke. So that's why I say it was an intel grab. Boom, in comes tariff. And they're like, people like, rah, rah, yeah. Hey guys, calm down. We're paying the tariff taxes, right? Like, of course, the whole bid is like, hey, exporter, you better lower those prices or we won't buy. No, we need their goods and services. We're not independent of them. So we can tell them to, and they're like, we're not lowering anything. Forget you. I don't care about your tariff law. You're paying the tariffs. If you want the goods, you got to pay it. And that is what happened. So you're bragging about tariff revenue, but it's coming from inside. So it's not revenue on fiat money. I'm done. Go ahead, Earl.
No, you are lighting it up. Man, I wish we were on the other system so you could get a DeMarco right now. Like you are dropping bars. And the thing that we like to do on this podcast is to make people realize how this affects them. Because you hear tariffs and then you don't understand it. And then you listen to a few educated people and then you understand, okay, this is a tax that I am paying
Yeah.
for the normal things I buy for my way of life, and I'm either directly paying it or indirectly because these manufacturers that own a whole bunch of things, because we have a whole bunch of monopolies and cartels and oligopolies,
Hmm.
somehow the cost is getting passed over to me. Okay, so what? I'm paying it right now. Who cares? The thing that my tax attorney and I are constantly telling clients is like, look, how can you plan your exit for your business tax wise or your retirement tax wise if you don't know what the future tax rate is going to be?
Mm.
And if we keep growing debt at this sort of rate, then the tax record is going to have to double. And it's happened before, just like you said. I know a lot of people were kind of okay with the 94% top marginal because it was $1 million, and then the next year they dropped it to 250,000. And that's when people got upset. They said, "Oh, this is actually hitting my
Like,
pocket."
whoa, right.
Right, right. Oh, let those guys making all that money, yeah, let them pay those taxes. So thank you so much for, taking us all the way through the debt clock to tariffs, because that's so important for people to understand that right now we are in a debt crisis. That debt crisis is going to control the tax rate. That
Right.
tax rate controls how much money you get in retirement.
Yep.
Bruh. It's dangerous. It's so I was talking with the other consultant that's on this engagement that I'm on, and between all of the AI that's going on and the level of displacement that's going to get created within the job market and the wealth gap just continuing to get disrespectfully wide, there is only so much that our society can handle before we face a violent revolution.
Mm.
So, like you're putting the 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 idea of taxes being increased in the midst of all of that, because if the option is for our government to become more judicious in the way that it allocates the budget that we fund versus demanding more money, we are in the form of taxes, we already know what they're going to do.
Right. Exactly.
And when as they're considering these types of things on top of the displacement in the job force and folks that have assets continuing to accrue more and more wealth, while those who are playing by the rules that have been published, it's like they've been telling us, go to college, get a job, buy a house, have a family. Bruh, the people that been following those rules are on the sideline like, nigga.
Right.
No, that's
Literally.
real. That's real. So that's why it I am so grateful that we have platforms like this for us to control our narrative, for us to have the important conversations that we need to have with our community on the problems that we are facing, because I hate for someone who is either uninformed or they're just mischievous. So they're going to misrepresent what the
Mm.
struggle looks like. They're not going to have empathy as they should. And then
Hmm.
they're going to throw out some silly solution like, oh, just have coffee once a week. It's like, look, there are people out here that are working 3 jobs and they're
Hmm.
still barely making ends meet.
Yeah.
They're already, if they didn't have coffee, they couldn't go to their 3 jobs.
Right. And I just have to add a little bit of context to that because I don't I don't generally choose to use the N word, and I definitely don't choose to use it on this platform. But sometimes it's just what's being presented is like, I don't know what else is supposed to fit in there. Like, you playing in my face like that? Like, what am, huh? Like,
They're
what are we?
playing. Yes, playing in your face. There really is no better way to say that. That's literally what they're doing. Yeah.
So,
100%.
listen, one of the things that you that definitely kind of blew me back a little bit when we met at InvestFest last year was the scale of wealth that your children are already building unbeknownst to themselves. So, can you speak to how we have the ability to, through these wealth vehicles, to truly set our children up for a different level of financial security?
See, now you get me really excited. I love this part. And the reason being, think about, so I don't know if y'all knew this. I used to run track, and that's how I got to college. I had a scholarship. Um, I wasn't a sprinter, I was long distance, but I did do the 4x800. That race, let me tell you, was brutal. And I remember like watching the race every time, right? And you have your four different legs and you're passing this baton, but your team can't get to the finish line if everyone does not pass the baton to the next runner when they're done. I look at that as the same thing for us. A lot of us feel like, oh, we've already finished the race. We're free. We got rights, yada, yada. No, but did you forget about the last leg? And honestly, I feel like we're on the third leg because there's some other stuff we need to address. But let's just say, we're like on the last end of the third leg, until they stop this police brutality stuff and all the judicial and legend. Don't even get me started. But as far as the wealth gap is concerned, I can definitely speak on that as that being one of the last legs in this race. We're not done because right now, I believe I just saw it updated. It's like the median black wealth is under $50,000. $50,000? What are we going to do with $50,000 in this economy? What are you going to do with $50,000 other than pay bills for 3 months? Really? You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. So, there are very easy ways to set your kids up in a way, yes, while you're still alive, but let's just face it. And I talk to my kids about this all the time because it's a part of life, death. Okay. And if I'm already going to check out one day, no one gets out of that. Okay. So if I'm going to check out one day, why am I not leaving money behind? And I'm not talking about $50,000. I'm not talking about the, little bundle I got with my home and auto whole life policy. That's weak because after you pay for the funeral, and I know they're very costly. We just paid for my baby sister's, memorial service. So I can tell you right now, even in states that aren't popular and highly populated, it's still a bill. Okay. So after $20,000 of paying for all that, you got 30,000 left, but you got a home mortgage. So now they got a short sale or foreclose, especially in this market. Then you got some cars. Oh, we love buying cars, new cars. I hate that. Okay. Drive the car that works. Until you can buy that car 5 times, you don't need the car. Until you are building wealth for the next generation, you don't need 5 vacations. You don't need to upgrade your home. Once that sucker's paid off, stay in there until you have assets to pass down. So, one of the easiest ways, life insurance. Like I said, I'm going to die one day. How much are y'all going to let me sign up for? Is my question. Oh, okay. So without looking through everything, 4 or 5 million, let's do it. Why would I not do that? Oh, but it's expensive. So is your, going out to eat bill every time you walk in there spending $80. Take yourself home. What the parents used to say, we got food at home. We do. So I'm not trying to take away your fun, but you have to prioritize that. There's no way I can look in my child's face. So we talk about playing in faces. There's no way I can look in my child's face and tell them, I'm going to choose me. And, when I pass away, I hope you figure it out. What? No. The baton is in our hands, and I do believe, maybe mid-Gen X, somewhere in there. Um, they're kind of like a different generation. I don't know, like some of them are like, yeah, and then some of them are like, I don't care. Like they're different. But I know millennials, we came on the scene like really grabbing this by the horns and saying, I don't like that they took our land. I don't like that they burned down a whole town in Oklahoma when we were trying to get things going. I don't like when I walk in a bank, but my loan looked different than theirs. You know what I mean? And all the redlining and everything that just ended. We're acting like this stuff was like a long, long time ago. My mom went to a segregated school. Let's be honest. Okay? So it's our turn to pass the baton on wealth. And the number one thing, if you're a parent, I don't want to hear it. There is really no excuse. Put the crab leg down. That is a premium for a very inexpensive life insurance policy. And then let's start building on that. Real estate, okay, let's do this smart, right? Don't get in here and get a high interest rate and a house that you know you can't afford. Start small, because once you start flipping that and you paying off houses, now you can do what the other people have been doing for centuries. Yes, we're behind, but with the right knowledge, we can catch up. So I know you get me on a tangent on that, because if you have you have children, okay, so you already know. Please do not come to me with that. I have very short patience for that. Nope.
No, that's powerful. And one thing that I'm always thinking about from a philosophical point of view, so many people, especially in our community, I would kill for my kids. I would kill for my family. Would you live correctly for them?
Mm.
Would you live an ordered life for them? Will you live a virtuous life for them so you can give something to your children's children? Will you do that for them? So I couldn't agree with you anymore. And then with the products that you offer and a lot of things that you're talking about, there are benefits while they're alive, right?
Yes. So if I've heard this before too. Well, what about me? At some point, there has to be a sacrifice, but yes, there still can be tools you can use while you're still alive. It might not be the bag that your children are going to get, but we can make it look nice. But that is one thing I've heard, or I would say I heard a lot in the beginning of my career is, well, it wasn't given to me. Well, the generation before you got beat and ate by dogs in the street just because they want to drink from the same water fountain. Every generation is going to have to sacrifice something. So if you're sitting here with no wealth, and I'm not talking about your little bank account, where your job deposits your check. That's not even what we're talking about. Real money. You want to stop like looking around and feeling like, you're behind or you don't have anything? Get in the game. There's no price, right? Unless you're buying life insurance, of course, but the information is free. So if you're not partaking in the information, it's because you don't want to. And I know this is going to hit some people and make them feel some kind of way, but you guys know me. I say what I got to say. You're selfish, because so many people sacrifice for you to even have what you have today. Okay? My favorite, oh my gosh, she's my favorite. So everybody knows her by Harriet Tubman. Her name is Araminta Ross. And that's actually my ghost name on Google. So if you ever see that, that's me. Um, she went back. Did she have to go back all those times? No, she did not. She really could have saved herself and lived her life, but she went back again and again and again and again. So if every generation has their monumental action that they did to advance us further, what is ours? It's wealth. Quit playing. So,
That part. Now, amongst the financial pieces and, well, really asset building conversations that we have, we also like to get into the socioeconomic and political, things that kind of serve as they create the undercurrent for a lot of these things that we talk about. And I don't know if there is a more disruptive situation going on in our modern times than that of what's happening in Iran. Have you been following that, Kristen?
Have I been following that? Yes, yes, I have.
All right, all right. So
Extensively.
we've been kind of really digging into this piece because, for one, we're not talking about the war aside, the ripple effect of what's to come, because we haven't felt what's coming yet as far as the financial implications on a world stage when it comes to the world economy. We have not really, like, the gas is expensive right now. Well, it's been increasing. It ain't done yet. It's not even like close to where it's going to be at when things are continuing on a trajectory that they've been on. So for us to talk about some of those things that are happening and the ripple effect that it causes, I know my feeling on it is we would be remiss to not have those conversations. And that's a foundational component of why we started this podcast to begin with, is to be able to control our own narrative. And a part of controlling our own narrative is to remain informed about the things that are happening. So last week, I turned on the news. Well, actually, let me rewind back a little bit. So from the time that we filmed last week, which we film every week on Monday. So from that time, we got the president coming out and saying, we have negotiated a deal with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is now open. And the prime minister, I want to say, I can't remember his exact title in Iran, but he put the information out as well, saying, the Strait of Hormuz is open. Now, that could have been fine and well, but our president can't just take a win. So, he gotta like add his orange flair to it. And one of the things that he decided to mention in there was, we gonna keep the Strait of Hormuz blocked. Like, so the Iranians have opened up the Strait of Hormuz, but we're still going to maintain our military blockade, which, what a military blockade is, for those of us who are not familiar, is when the United States Navy comes in with all of our glory. And that is the piece that I wore the uniform. So it makes me proud to know what our military is capable of doing. Now, it being abused in different types of ways, obviously that's not something that I endorse. However, the blockade itself is the idea of saying, we run this block. Don't come through here with that. So through imposing that blockade is basically saying no ships are going in and out of the strait whatsoever, regardless of what Iran is doing. So for our president to come out and say, yep, the Iranians have opened up the Strait of Hormuz, but guess what? We're not going to remove our blockade until the deal is officially signed, like in ink. So then the Iranians said, oh yeah? Well, guess what? The strait is closed again. So then we got ships that are listening to what the president said. They go through the Strait of Hormuz, and the IRGC, which, like, we're not talking about these logistics enough. So the IRGC, the Islamic Republican Guard Corps, they are, and I'm giving this context just for our viewers and listeners who don't understand that. The IRGC, they are, like, their mission is bigger than Iran, right? They are like, kind of, when it comes to the, like, Islam, and I'm not sure if it's the Shiites or the Sunnis. I think it's the Shiites.
I think it's the Shiites, but yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So they are riding for that side of Islam and preserving it and protecting it at all costs. So and that military force is completely independent from the Iranian military. So the Iranian, they got two different military forces that are operating within their country. Well, the IRGC, they was like, hey, man, we told y'all the strait is now closed again. So we got these two ships that say, YOLO. and they went to go transit throughout the strait. And the Iranians came out with, so our government is talking about how we have devastated their military and their Navy is, so the Secretary of Defense came out and said, we have an agreement with the Iranians where we will share the sea and they get the bottom half of it. Oh, you spicy. You talking spicy. So the IRGC said, oh, y'all really talking spicy. So when those ships came to move through the strait, they come out with their little warships. And I say little warships because it's small little gunships that you can't really do nothing about. Like our military can sink all of their like primary military assets, but these little speedboats that have been outfitted for like a small scale war or conflict or what have you, when they come out of a cave and just start shooting at the ship, which is what happened on Thursday. What are we doing? So it's like these are things that, again, it's important for us to be having these conversations because there's going to be a ripple effect from all of this stuff because, the insurance companies have already said, we're not going to be insuring those ships that are coming through the strait because it's too much of a risk. And for it to turn into this situation where, ships are being fired upon and, our Navy just fired on an Iranian, I believe it was an Iranian ship and like had our Marines boarding it and doing all of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
These acts of war. Right? So as Kristen, as you've been paying attention to what's going on in Iran, what's been your read and interpretation on the implications of it on the world economy and our way of life?
So kind of goes into cause and then effects, or, like the symptom versus what's actually going on. I learned this was last week. Because I believe Trump made a statement like, hey, our oils, we're good. We've got oil in the back, we got oil in the front. It takes a rig from that location, from the Strait of Hormuz, 6 weeks to get to us. That's how long it takes it. So we're like, what, 8 weeks in, something like that? So we're just now seeing the shortage come from this and what they've been doing. Now, I also made this comment, and I'm going to try to keep this as rated G as possible. But it's almost like a bunch of dudes sitting around like, mine's bigger. No, mine's bigger. Like, it's literally that. I feel like that's what I'm watching every day. Okay. Third, and just being fair. Now, thank you for your service, definitely. And I understand the sacrifice that you guys make to keep us safe, for our freedom. My own father was in the Air Force for 22 years, something like that, 22, 23. He flew B-52 bombers in the Iraq War, or what was that? That was a Gulf War. So he flew B-52 bombers. We didn't see him for 6 to 9 months at a time. Okay, so please believe. Oh, and by the way, today a bunch of veterans got detained and arrested because they were peacefully protesting today. And yeah, DC. Yeah, bunch of veterans. It was a lot of them, at least over 50 from what I could see. So you have a lot of people seeing the exact thing I just said. Are y'all just trying to see whose is bigger? But also, too, let's be fair. Even though my own father and you have served, If someone were to come over here messing with us, we would defend ourselves. So why are we not expecting another country to do the same? You know what I mean? On top of that, like us, I've been digging down rabbit holes for 6, 8 weeks on this. On top of that, this whole thing is about, oh, nuclear weapons, they're not allowed to have them. I think there's roughly 9 countries in the whole entire world that actually have nuclear weapons or nukes. Um, our little kid brother that we decided to hop in this war with, they have about 90, 93. We're second. We had the second most, and then Russia has the most. China's somewhere in there, and I forget the rest of them. I think India is one of them, but basically 9 countries. And this was all part of some agreement a while back when we were dropping them things, and they were like, okay, we gotta reel this in. This is not okay. So we're allowed to have nukes, but now we're going over there and we're like, nope, you've got this uranium or whatever this material is they need to build them. When I'm being told that the uranium that they actually have is not even up to par, the 90% grade that they need to make these nukes, it's like a 60% grade. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so why are y'all really over there? I believe it's for mining their resources. Again, you want to conquer and colonize and do the things that you do, right? And go over there and run the show, but you also want to mine their minerals and things that they have so you can bring it back over here. So again, I'm American, but I'm looking at this situation like, how is any of this fair or okay? They're defending themselves. Were they supposed to lay down? They're one of the oldest countries in the world. This is supposed to be like, yes, 250-year America. No, they're gonna fight back. And like you said, there's their military and then the IRGC and all of that. That's a whole other rabbit hole as well, right? But the basis, the context of this war is you guys keep changing the reason why we're over there. And like you said, and now you're blocking the Strait of Hormuz because Iran was like, well, now we need to start charging people 2 million a ship because y'all done blew everything up. We need to rebuild. I just don't understand. Why are we over there? Let's be for real. Quit playing in our
Well,
face.
well, Kristen, there's not really a true economic reason for being there because everything we're doing is hustling backwards. Under the deal that we had that President Obama writ,
Mm,
they the Strait of Hormuz had to be open. Enrichment of uranium had to stay below 60%, which it has been at, so they could not make nuclear weapons.
hmm
And then every ship going through there was paying in US dollars. We've talked about it many times on this podcast that having a worldwide reserve currency is a very important thing for America because one thing that helps you when you're creating a lot of debt is if everyone's using your currency, then you don't have hyperinflation. And then
hmm
we have something called the petrodollar, where everywhere in the world, when oil is sold or purchased, it doesn't matter what side of the agreement you're on, is purchased in US dollars. We have lost the petrodollar through the strait right now because they are forcing ships to pay in yuan
hmm
instead of the US dollar.
Yep.
And we've talked about on this podcast how we are funding 3 sides of the war. We have to fund Iraq because if we don't, then Iran will take them over, and we don't want that. So we
hmm
send pallets of money on trucks every single week there. Iraqis will create different sort of sheltered corporations and shell corps to get the money because we're supposed to be sanctioning them. So we're directly funding the country that we're sanctioning while spending $1 billion a day with our munitions, while losing the petrodollar, while putting the entire world on notice of a global depression. People don't realize if this strait stays closed for 30 more days, the price of gas is expected to go up 70%. The price of food is expected to go up 120 to 320% because 30% of the world's fertilizer goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And then we're just layering things on top of each other. Where it's like, how could it not be a global depression if we keep this going? And there's absolutely no reason for us to be over there. And now we don't have a clean way to pull out either. So it's like, what's
Okay.
going to happen?
Not one reason. Not one legit reason. We backtracked. Look at what they've agreed on now. It's actually worse than what it was.
Right. And Jesse talked about it, about how many billions of dollars we just unfroze and gave their country. You know, when Obama made his deal, he said, hey, we're going to unfreeze about $1 billion of your dollars to make the agreement work out. And people called him a lunatic. They called him an apologist. They called him all these things. Just this year, the United States has unfrozen $22 billion to Iran.
So
And
far.
it's like, so far, like this has been in 8 weeks. This
Wow.
is in 8 weeks. So
Wow.
it's a crazy position. I know Jesse wants to chime in on it, and then I know we'll be bringing this thing to a landing because it's so amazing to have you on the show. And we're going to have you back many more times because there's so much more that we need to talk about with all of our listeners, with all of our classmates. But I know Jesse is chomping at the bits because, man, he's been doing his due diligence on this whole situation.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say it's a lot of layers to it. And it could be its own, what's going on in Iran could be its own podcast, truly, because of the historical implications that it's going to have for a long time ahead of us. So, I'm not going to go any further into it this episode, but suffice it to say, like, these are not the times for us to be complacent and uninformed about the things that are happening. Because to your point there, Earl, with another month of this going on, shit's starting to get real. And the thing about it getting real is, for us in the United States, what real looks like is for our prices to get ridiculously high, which is terrible. What this means for a significant portion of the world is the resources that we're going to experience high prices for, they're going to experience critical shortages altogether. Like they're not going to have enough money to be able to pay for what it takes to get those resources. So it truly is a huge, huge, huge issue. That said, Kristen, the retirement Barbie, it has been an absolute pleasure having you. You have an open invitation on this here platform
Thank you.
because we need sisters, queens like yourself that speak that talk. And when I say speak that talk, we got a lot of distractive things that we could be allocating our time toward. And you have invested in the knowledge and experience to truly help others to build generational wealth. And that's one of the bases of the formation of this podcast and everything that it will grow into. So again, the deepest gratitudes to you, Queen.
Thank you.
And like I said, you got yourself an open invitation on this platform.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. I know when Earl invited me, I think it was a while back, and I didn't hear back, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll get my invite. I was waiting for it, but then when he said, let's go, I'm like, I'm ready. I could talk for hours. So yes, please have me back, and we can further discuss all the rabbit holes that I live in. I'm like a super nerd, so
I think we
I
all
don't
are.
think
I think we
I don't
all
think
are.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything you could bring up that I haven't already been down a rabbit hole in. So,
And when I was a teenager, being a nerd was, that wasn't that wasn't the space that. And now I was just thinking about this earlier actually, because whenever that I would visit my family in North Philadelphia, they would be like, "Yo, you talk like a white boy," and it was like a funny kind of thing. Well,
yeah.
now when I think about it, because literally I was driving back to the hotel and I'm like, bruh, I really can I milli rock on any block, every block, because I know the conversations that I was having earlier today. But
Yep.
I
Code
also know,
switch.
I'm sorry.
Code switch.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Like I know what those conversations were. I know the other types of conversations that I have. And I know this conversation that we have in here. Like having the versatility to bounce in and out of. So what was deemed as being a nerd back then is nothing shy of invaluable versatility, which is something that we desperately need as a people. Now, we've always had versatility, but I mean versatility in the sense of actually building things of value
Mm.
and owning those things, not
Mm-hmm.
building them for someone else to appropriate them, but for us to have our own, through the versatility and the wide range of thought for us as the brilliant body of people that we are. So yeah, as always, uh, this platform was never designed to inflame, infuriate, frustrate, annoy, none of those things. It is strictly for the purposes of, we talk about building assets. Our greatest asset is our community and our body of people. So through the investment into our people via some of the critical conversations that we have, we are doing our part to strengthen our overall ecosystem.
Amen. And I'll say this, Mike Jones put it best. You talk about the nerds, how it was so not cool. But back then, didn't want me. Now I'm hot. They all want me. It's like now the nerds are in. Like the people have the information. Yeah, y'all wouldn't try. Y'all wasn't looking for us because I was a nerd. I was a nerd. Looked like it, everything. Yeah. So I feel you on that. And I'm excited. Like I said, I feel like millennials are really stepping into this. So can't wait to come back.
100%. So again, our deepest gratitude to you, Kristen. Thank you for joining us. And
Thank you. Thank you.
yes, yes. And to our audience, it's been my man Earl.
My boy Jesse.
It's been the Asset Class. Thank you for listening.